Welcome back, America. Ambassador Ron Dermer, don't you find it more than ironic, in fact, repulsive, that your country is being lectured all the time about civilians, and you say over and over again, we're trying to avoid civilian deaths, we're trying to open up these pathways for civilians to get out. You've lost almost 40 IDF soldiers now. If you wanted to blow that country or that state, that territory off the face of the earth, you certainly could, but you choose not to. From these other countries, who are hardly civil rights authoritarian regimes, they are, but they hardly promote civil rights. They're slaughtering their own people. They're torturing their own people. Don't you find it a little odd that these international human rights groups and the New York Times and all the others never report about any of this?
Yeah, I like how you say it's a little odd. I guess you become a good diplomat. It's shameful, but you've seen the hypocrisy of the Middle East. And probably the only place that is more hypocritical than the Middle East is the United Nations. And people castigate Israel and excoriate us for what we do when we take action that no country that I'm aware of in the history of the world has taken the action that we've taken to keep the civilian population of our enemy out of harm's way. You know, I was born and raised in the United States, Mark, as you know, and as you can hear from my accent. And in Israel, I always ask myself, having been born and raised in the United States and grown up there and really loving America and think America is a good and decent country, not a perfect country. We're all imperfect, but as great superpowers go, the best country in the history of the world, and how it's treated also its enemies in times of war, because others did not do that if you know anything about history. But when I think about what Israel does, I always ask myself what I call the WWAD question. What would America do faced with this threat? So here's a question I'm going to ask you. And I'll put it in American terms so you understand what happened on October 7th and the war that we're currently waging right now. So imagine that you have 50 to 60,000 Americans are killed on a single day, the equivalent of 29 11s. And then you have 8,000 American hostages taken over your southern border. And then you're going to go and wage war. And what the entire world is going to talk to you about is how much humanitarian assistance is going to the people who live in those areas, and make sure you're doing everything to keep the innocent civilians out of harm's way. What do you think America would do if it was facing the threat that we were facing, not thousands of miles away in some caves in Tora Bora, but literally on your southern border? Oh, and let me add something else for you as well. You have half of your population rushing to bomb shelters because they're firing rockets at you every single day. What do you think the American government would do? So Israel should be judged not by some standard of perfection. We should be judged based on how any other country would operate under the conditions of war that we are operating. And then I think you'll find that the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, is the most moral army in the world. And I say that with great respect for the United States military forces. But I see the lengths that Israel takes to keep the civilians out of harm's way. And they take these lengths when we're fighting a war on the home front, not thousands of miles away. And I think that's the difference. And I tell for all those people, who criticize Israel, Israel should win. I said this once years ago in the war on Gaza, that our IDF should win a Nobel Prize for peace, for how we fight wars, because no other country we're doing what we're doing. So we're going to stick to our own values, and we're going to push back against anybody that would say that Israel is acting in some sort of immoral way, is callous towards civilians. The only one that is trying to keep the civilians out of harm's way is actually Israel. And Hamas is doing everything to keep its civilian population out of harm's way. And the key to helping those Palestinian civilians is actually to get rid of Hamas, to free Gaza from Hamas. That's how they can have a better future. And anyone who cares about them should be looking for Israel to win quickly and win decisively. And you mentioned it. Let me just say, a lot of the leaders in the region, we speak to them, and they may not say it publicly, but they all say us, win. Just do it in 3 weeks without any civilian casualties. And if you can find that magic wand, Mark, where I can just wave it and all of a sudden Hamas and other terror organizations will disappear without a single Palestinian civilian casualty, I'll take it in a minute. But that's not the war that we're waging in. It's unfortunate that we have to do this. But when you guys were going into Berlin, when you guys were going to defeat Japan, You understood the most important thing was to achieve that victory. That gave the chance of a better future. That's where Israel is now. That's the mission we're on, and we're going to have to complete that mission for our sake, for the sake of Palestinians, for the sake of the whole region, and for the sake of the world, because at the end of the day, this is a battle, as the Prime Minister said from day one, between the forces of civilization and the forces of barbarism. And if you're on the side of civilization, you are standing with Israel.
Well, I can tell you, this audience, my radio audience, the vast majority of Americans in every survey that's been done since October 7th stands with Israel, and I hope that message gets back to the Prime Minister and the people of Israel. Mr. Ambassador Ron Dermer, thank you very much. Be safe, and God bless to you and your family, my friend.
Thank you, and I want to thank the American people, because the Israeli people know that America stands with us, and that is very heartening as we're waging this war, and we appreciate the solidarity and the sympathy that you have with Israel, and also because we know that America wants Israel to win.
Amen. We'll be right back.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.